Hi there! You're about to listen to a vintage episode of the Under the Microscope podcast. While the content is still as relevant and as interesting as when it was recorded, our webpage has changed. You can now find us at thesciencetalk.com/real-scientist-nano. Welcome to Under the Microscope. This series is brought to you by the Real Scientists Nano team. Our goal is to provide a platform where scientists can communicate their work and interact with the public. With that in mind, every week we introduce you to a scientist working in the field of materials and nanoscience, who would be curating the RealSci_Nano Twitter account. Hi everyone. Today we have with us Muhammad Nauman, who is a postdoctoral researcher at the Institute of Science and Technology in Austria. Hi Muhammad, how are you?
I'm good. Thank you.
Awesome. Let's take a deeper dive in getting to know you as a scientist and your research as well. So tell us about your scientific journey so far, or your career journey so far.
Okay. Thank you for having me. I started my academic journey from a remote area at a small town in the northeast part of the province named Khyber Pakhtunkhwa in Pakistan. It's a village called Ziyarat Ka Kasib, and I did my early education, childhood, and then high school from the same area. And then I did my bachelor's from institute called Islamia College Peshawar. And then my master's from ComStats University in Islamabad. Then I got a PhD scholarship in South Korea, University Namkyang National University. And I did PhD from there. Then I did 1 year postdoc at the same institute. And recently, from February 2021, I joined as a postdoctoral researcher in the Institute of Science and Technology, Austria. And yeah, the journey was this research journey actually started during my master's degree. Basically started from undergraduate, but as you know, undergraduate is a kind of preparation for starting your research career. And in masters, we start understanding all the terminologies and stuff associated with research. So I worked as a research associate in a joint PARC-US project on the magnetic hyperthermia. It was a technique that was introduced to treat cancer using magnetic nanoparticles. And this project was supported by Florida State University, USA, and ComStats University, Islamabad. So working as a research associate in this joint project for 1 year, my part was to synthesize magnetic nanoparticles and study their properties and check their suitability or assess these particles to be employed for the treatment of cancer. And we used to check different response of these nanoparticles, like the heating response, the magnetic response, how these properties changes with the size of the nanoparticles, and how it can help in curing cancer, which is cause of a large number of deaths annually, and which is a very, you can say, disease that take lives every year in a large number.
Mm-hmm. Right. Wow. Yeah, you're right. It does. Well, first of all, quite a journey you've had, starting from a village in Pakistan, right? And then being a
Yeah.
traveling scientist, going to South Korea, now being in Austria.
Yeah.
Did I miss any of the countries?
No, you are, yeah.
Yeah, I
You,
didn't miss it. Awesome.
yeah.
So this is quite an inspiring journey, I would say. And thank you very much for sharing it. Yeah, I hope that your current research is
as fulfilling as the research that you mentioned with the cancer treatment, or was it drug delivery?
It was synthesis of nanoparticles. Nanoparticles are considered a zero-dimensional object. So basically, I started my research from there. It was quite interesting.
Right.
But then at some stage, I felt to jump to 2 dimensions or 3 dimensions from 0 dimensions. And then during my PhD, I just switched a little bit from magnetic nanoparticles to magnetic crystals, single crystals basically. There are polycrystals and single crystal, but my research was mostly focused on single crystals and then their magnetic properties. And as I mentioned, in extreme conditions like very low temperature and very high magnetic field. And you can say during PhD, I just switched a little bit from application side towards basic science. And in terms of materials, from nanoparticles to single crystals. And in terms of properties, rather than looking at some certain application perspective, we started thinking about transport properties, which is commonly known as resistance or resistivity, and how magnetization dictate these kind of resistance or resistivity properties.
Okay. Wow. Thank you for clearly mentioning from the material point of view, from the property point of view, from the application to basic sciences point of view. I think I understand it way better now. So, your current research, Mohammed, where does it fall in this big picture of materials and nanoscience? Because the field is quite broad. So, where does it fit in this big puzzle?
Yeah, so just to give you a very clear, brief image of what we are doing is actually when you take any material, there can be associated properties, very diverse associated properties. Let's say it can be optical properties, it can be electrical properties, it can be magnetic properties, it can be strength properties like how strong is this material, which are usually termed as mechanical properties. So then if we narrow down it, then we are studying magnetic properties. And if we further narrow down, these are then broad class of magnetic materials ranging from paramagnetic, ferromagnetic, antiferromagnetic, canted antiferromagnetic. So we are then focused on, I am focused on the antiferromagnetic material mostly, with some mixture of ferromagnetism. And then I study how these materials behave under magnetic field, how strong is the magnetization, and how this magnetization then affect the resistance or resistivity of this certain material under the environment, extreme environment or extreme condition I mentioned before. So these properties, we are usually targeting these materials or approach these materials from basic science perspective, but these properties has very direct link sometime with the application side, and it give very novel functionalities that are very useful in the electronic industries and other related industries and application side.
Okay. Okay, I understand it better now. Thank you very much for that. That your research is definitely very, very cool. And it sounds to me that you have been involved, and also in the past and also now in the present, you are involved in quite a lot of interesting research projects. And this question is a tough one. I know this before asking it. If you have to pick one research project that you're most proud of, or the most fun or quirky one, could you pick one and explain it to us in simple words in the section we call In Other Words?
Yeah, so there are, as you mentioned, I'm working on different projects, and there are many cool projects I'm currently working on, but I'll just talk about the one that are now established, kind of, and those are published one. So, when we talk about electron has a mass, electron has a charge, electron has spins. These three properties are mostly discussed in scientific community when we talk about electrons. So in the past, we know in electronics, people used to employ this charge behavior of electron and talk about how this electron travel through a material and how it feel collision inside a material when it move, which leads to heat and it heat up like, our mobile phone, our laptops, all the electronic appliances, these heat up when an electron pass through that material. So it is because we use the charge property of the electron. So what we did in my PhD research, we utilize the spin property of the electron, and we find the material that is suitable for the spintronics functionality. And spintronic word is a combination of two words, means spin and electronics. It means we do not use the charge property of the electron, but rather we use the spin property of electron. And so there are two kind of associated phenomena. Like when we take a material, we inject electron to that material. Just I'll talk very, very vaguely, you can
Very
say,
broadly here,
very
yeah.
broadly, yeah.
Yeah.
So when we inject an electron, so one is the spin of the injecting electron, and the material also consists of atoms and electrons, right? The material that we are studying. So there are two kind of spins. One is the spin of the injecting electron, another is the spin of the electrons present in the material, and it leads to the bulk magnetization response of the crystal or the system that we study. So we found during my PhD that when we align the spin of the electrons in the material in the same orientation in the incoming electron spin, then the resistance of the material reduces.
Oh.
But if the alignment of the spins of the two electrons are not perfectly aligned, then it leads to high resistance. So that was very interesting correlation between the magnetic properties and the transport properties or resistance of the electrons. And we usually term these properties in magnetotransport, because why we call it magnetotransport? Because magnetism basically dictate the transport, which is resistivity or resistance in the material. So that was very fascinating and interesting. And we found a certain material called strontium iridate. We found that material is suitable for such spintronics functionality because we can manipulate the spin R ring in the crystal, and we can turn on and turn off the current using that functionality.
Wow, that sounds cool. And just probably a very naive question here. All this is happening at temperatures below 300 Kelvin, below so 0 Kelvin, close to 0 Kelvin.
Yeah, so what I studied is it was almost at 60 Kelvin. It was a little above the 60 Kelvin, above
hot.
the best temperature. Yeah.
It's too hot.
So, but that was very fascinating, like to look how the magnetization is linked with this transport and how it dictates in this material.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. That sounds really cool. I hope this work is also published so people can read it, and you will talk about it when you're tweeting from the Real Scientist Nano Twitter account.
Yeah, sure. This work, the first we tried to study how is the magnetization of this material and how magnetization changes when we change the direction inside the material. You know, the common term anisotropy. Anisotropy refers to the directional dependency of the properties. So the anisotropy can be in the magnetic properties. It can be in the electrical properties. It can be in terms of strain. But we were focusing on magnetic anisotropy. It means like it was easy to magnetize our system along the A axis or B axis in a crystal, but it was hard along C axis. So it was first part, and we found that which axis is basically the easy axis in the crystal, and that work was published in Physical Review B. Then next step was to employ this magnetic anisotropy and look how it changes the transport. So then the further advancement in this work was published in Advanced Materials, and the title was the antiferromagnetic based spintronics functionality, which the name by itself says that we used antiferromagnetic materials and we tuned the spintronics functionality of that material.
Okay, do share the URLs of these papers when you're tweeting from the account so that people can read the papers, both the
Sure,
papers.
sure.
That would be amazing. So I can understand why you picked this project as one of the proud ones and
Hmm.
also the one that is established and you can talk about it because it
Hmm.
is definitely fascinating and really, really cool.
Hmm.
Um, so, Mohammed, it's clear to me that you love the research aspect of being a scientist, but there are more. Um, things happening around you. There are more things that you are involved with as a scientist. So, what else do you like about being a scientist other than the research itself?
So, like being a scientist, I think every individual of a society should have scientific thought process because it gives you a feeling of numbers. In science, we use a terminology, number kills you, because if you don't have understanding of numbers, you know how large is a number, how small is a number, so it affects you. So being a scientist, it gives you a unique way of thinking where you critically and logically analyze every phenomena without accepting it or without just believing in it. And you like it give you a special kind of thought process, uh, and sometimes this kind of thinking leads to many interesting outcomes and breakthroughs that change human life directly. So and why such process is important? Because these open new horizons in the field of exploration and advancement. So you start understanding stuff from a very different perspective, what other people think. So it's always fun to do science and
Mhm.
look at things with scientific lenses or glasses.
All right, that sounds good. That sounds really cool. So, um, speaking of which, what advice would you give to the students or researchers or scientists who are starting out today? Or if you were to go back in time, and you were to start off today, what advice would you give?
So it's a great question. Usually, you know, scientific being a scientist, some people sometimes think of it as they are some supernatural individuals who
You're
deal with
not?
very
You're not?
they like deal things in a very complex manner, but it's not complex. Science, the beauty of science is it's our everyday life. Just we need to, as I mentioned before, just we need to change the glasses of looking at it.
Mm,
So I think being a scientist, one must adopt scientific thinking and uh, critical analysis of every scientific outcome. Sometimes people just discard or trace data. Uh, I'm talking from an from experimentalist point of view,
mm,
because I'm an experimentalist. So
mm,
maybe this may vary when you go, uh, when you're talking as a theorist.
mm,
But when you are experimentalist, you come across some experiments sometime that doesn't work,
mm,
or sometime you does not get what you want.
mm,
So we just ignore that. So being a scientist, we does not ignore, we do not ignore stuff. We just because we learn from failure as well as we learn from success when we
mhm,
are successful in a certain experiment.
mhm,
So it's always there is always something to learn, and it's a non-stop learning process.
mhm.
So just
Right.
just look at things to both the failures and success and try to learn from it, because if somebody is following you on your path in your area of research, it helps them that what are the causes of failures, and they just start from there. They do
Mm,
not repeat the same mistake or the same steps. So
right. Right, right. Yeah, that makes sense. So have the critical thinking, have the critical analysis, and don't just build on successes. Also think about the failures. Try to
exactly,
understand why some
exactly,
things didn't work,
exactly. Don't
because it's
discourage,
very
and yeah, exactly.
yeah, that makes sense. And I think you also made a very good point that don't just put it away. Just talk about it so that other people don't make the same mistakes, so that we can learn from each other at the end of the day to advance science, because that's what we are all in this for, to advance the science, advance the research. Very, very fine pieces of advice. Thank you, Mohammed. It sounds to me that your research experience so far has been wonderful. I hope it has been wonderful, and I hope it will continue to be wonderful in the future as well. However, if you have 3 wishes to improve your research experience, what would you ask for? And I'm not promising anything here, okay?
Okay, so what I feel is we need a very better communication tool or way of communication to communicate to the public that how beautiful the science is. So I wish if I could be successful in making the science simple to the public and common men, why science is important and how interesting it is. The other thing that I would like, it is my desire that we, being scientists, we should focus on quality. We are living in a society, and sometimes we are pushed towards something. Sometimes we focus on number of publications because sometimes it is required for career. Sometimes it is good, it compel you to do good research in a very short span of time, but sometimes it may not work, and for that you need a big time frame where you don't worry much about the quantity, but you are focused on quality, and such stuff then leads to very, very huge breakthroughs in science. So other wish is just to focus on quality and just to set goals, not targets. As a famous English quote says that we have goals, not targets. So I think we should have big goals in science because there are still many unresolved mysteries that we are struggling for. The third thing is just to, maybe I feel like, as I mentioned in my introduction, that I start thinking critically during my master's degree. And I think we should inculcate such critical thinking from the very childhood in the children's, because if they start thinking critically from very young age, when they reach to certain level, they become very polished and very good scientists. They are very clear. They have very different understanding of stuff. They have very different approach towards certain problems, and I think it'll help them a lot. Yeah.
Okay. All 3 very, very fine wishes. I wish I could just grant them and being like, okay, yeah, Mama, tomorrow when you wake up, we are all going to focus on quality. We are all going to have critical thinking. We are all going to be able to explain science in the most simplest way to the youth and to everyone. However, I would say that all 3 of your wishes are very, very realistic, and I hope they come true. In a short period of time, and I hope more and more people also share the same wishes as you, so that we can have a bigger impact, definitely. So this has been wonderful, Mohammed. I loved speaking with you and learning about your research and about you as a scientist. But before I let you go, I have one last question for you, and that is, we can't ignore the pandemic anymore. So what are your learnings from the year 2020 and also the year 2021 now? Whatever you want to share.
Yeah, so sometime mostly people think in around us, people talk about making money, having a very good lifestyle, and that's only the sole purpose of life. So 2020 taught us, every individual, that only money is not something that will save humans from any natural, uh, uh, you can say, catastrophes or maybe natural phenomena that occurs and it affect humans directly. So it taught us that it made us realize that the importance of science and scientists, how critical it is in a society. Like people, the businessman having billions of dollars and big companies that they were looking at scientists that maybe they'll have some solution to this problem. And at last it was the only solution that was left with people. And when everybody was asking about when the vaccine will be developed, how long it will take, and people start thinking about such specified topics of research or science. And this was just one demonstration of how critical science is for humans. But there are many others that we do not realize in our everyday life, but those are important. This was just like a a nano-sized or micro-sized creature that impacted and thousands of kilometers on the earth, human lives and their way of life. So this is only science that can tell you how very small creature have an impact on thousands of kilometers area on earth. So we need to be, again, I'll mention why the numbers are important, why critical thinking is important, and why science is important. So I think it was a year, although there were many unwanted or drawbacks are the what we can call the negative sides of 2020, but the positive one are those we should learn from it, because we learn in science, we learn both from negative and
Positives and
positive.
negatives. Yeah, we just spoke about it, the failures and the successes. Focus on the failures and successes equally. We already covered that. Absolutely. Thank you very much for sharing that, Muhammad. As I mentioned, this has been lovely and really, really looking forward to having you on Real Scientist Nano.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for listening. To know more about us, please visit our website, realscientistsnano.org, and follow us on Twitter at realsci_nano.